For years, I paid rent to live in my parents' home, always on time, never complained. But now, out of nowhere, my mom says I need to pay even more to help cover the expenses of my brother, his wife, and their kids, who live there for free. That's when I realized I wasn't family. I was just the bank. I've been contributing financially to my parents' household since I became an adult at 18, even throughout my college years. I consistently felt it was the correct course of action, fulfilling my part. However, my favorite sibling, who has never contributed a single cent for anything, relocated back home with his spouse and 2 children. Unexpectedly, my mother contacted me, requesting an increased payment. You won't believe what she uttered next. Allow me to establish the setting for you all. My name is Ethan, and for as long as I can recall, I've been the dependable individual in my family. You know the archetype: achieves good grades, avoids trouble, the kind of child parents delight in boasting about at family gatherings, yet somehow disregard when it comes to genuine affection. My brother Mark, he embodies the favored child in every sense of the term. Charming, captivating, and perpetually lacking accountability, he navigated through existence, causing heartbreak, accumulating debt, and generally leaving a wake of disorder behind him. Nevertheless, he invariably lands on his feet, typically with our parents intervening to soften his descent. From our childhood, it was always this way. Mark could do no wrong. If he shattered a lamp, it was an accident. If I merely left a glass on the coffee table without a coaster, I would face intense scrutiny. It was perplexing, honestly, as if we inhabited entirely distinct realities, judged by completely disparate sets of guidelines. When I reached 18 and began attending community college, my parents engaged me in a discussion about adult responsibilities. It revolved around instilling in me the significance of money, fostering self-reliance, all that commendable guidance. So, we established an arrangement. I would pay $600 each month for lodging. At that time, I was employed part-time at the local supermarket, bagging groceries and arranging merchandise, in addition to my coursework. $600 constituted a substantial portion of my earnings, believe me. But I fulfilled it every single month, come what may. I handed over that rental payment. Did Mark pay rent when he resided at home? No, not a single penny. He was, you see, figuring things out, perpetually figuring things out but never quite discerning how to, cover any expenses. Fast forward a few years. I'm now 24, employed full-time as a junior programmer after diligently completing my college education. I'm still residing at home, partly because living costs are exorbitant elsewhere, and partly because, honestly, a small part of me still harbored a faint hope of perhaps, just perhaps, gaining some genuine parental affirmation. Foolish, I know, but hope persists, doesn't it? I was still remitting my $600 monthly, without objection. It was the agreement, and I adhered to my agreements. I even assisted with provisions sometimes, contributed to the occasional household repair. I was fulfilling my obligations, perhaps even exceeding them. Then, abruptly, the bombshell dropped. Mark contacted my parents, full of drama and self-pity. It turned out his most recent brilliant business endeavor, something involving cryptocurrency, naturally, had collapsed spectacularly. Who could have foreseen that, right? Sarcasm intended, obviously. In any case, he, his wife Sarah, and their 2 children, 8-year-old Chloe and 5-year-old Leo, were between residences. Translation: they were financially destitute and had no other recourse. My parents, bless their perpetually accommodating hearts, immediately offered for them to move back in, just temporarily, of course. Famous last words. I knew the instant I learned about it that temporary, in Mark's lexicon, signified until the universe's ultimate demise. Their relocation was tumultuous, to put it mildly. Suddenly, our tranquil, reasonably orderly home transformed into a whirlwind of clamor, playthings, and general disarray. Chloe and Leo, endearing as they are, children, boisterous, lively children. Sarah, Mark's wife, appeared constantly stressed and overwhelmed. And Mark? Mark simply drifted about, behaving as if nothing was amiss, cracking jokes and somehow managing to create even more disorder. Life grew intricate. The lavatory was perpetually occupied, the kitchen was constantly sticky, my meticulously arranged remote work area in the spare bedroom was continually being encroached upon by stray toys and demands for refreshments. Peace and quiet became a distant memory, like something I'd encountered in a historical account. And then, the crowning touch on this already overflowing dessert of family dysfunction, Mother summoned me to the living room one evening, her demeanor serious and solemn. Father was also present, appearing as though he preferred to be anywhere else on the planet. Mark and Sarah were conveniently absent, likely concealed in their former sleeping quarters, which they had somehow managed to claim as their own within approximately 5 minutes of their arrival. "Ethan," Mother began, her voice adopting that distinct tone she employs just before making an unreasonable request. "We need to discuss the household expenditures." "Here we go," I mused, bracing myself. "With Mark and his family residing here," she continued, "financial matters are tighter than anticipated." No kidding, Mother, I thought, but remained silent. "The grocery expenses have escalated, the electricity bill, water, everything. It's simply a lot." She sighed theatrically, as if personally burdened by the responsibility of nourishing her own son and grandchildren, whom she had invited, mind you. So, she finally arrived at the core issue. "We were contemplating if perhaps you could contribute a bit more to the lodging payment." I blinked once, twice. Did I comprehend her correctly? "Wait," I interjected, striving to maintain an even tone. "You desire me to remit a higher lodging fee, even though Mark and his family are now residing here without charge?" Mother's countenance tightened, that familiar strained expression that typically precedes a discourse on familial obligation and my inherent egocentricity. "It's not without charge, Ethan," she asserted, her voice imbued with a familiar blend of culpability and disapproval. "It's family. We're assisting them in regaining their stability." "And I'm not family?" I inquired, the question escaping my lips before I could fully process it. It sounded pathetic, even to my own ears, but honestly that's how it felt, as if I were some sort of boarder, a paying visitor, while Mark and his family were the true inhabitants, the ones deserving of care and assistance, no questions asked. Father cleared his throat, finally engaging in the dialogue. "Ethan," he stated in that composed, rational voice he utilizes when about to present a completely irrational demand, "your mother is correct. Mark is navigating a difficult period. We need to support him. And how am I meant to support him? By paying more lodging fees?" I questioned, my voice beginning to escalate. "Despite my utmost efforts, he's the one who squandered all his funds in some quick enrichment scheme. He's the one with 2 offspring to nourish. Why am I being penalized for his missteps?" Mother's gaze narrowed. "Don't you dare speak about your brother in that manner, Ethan," she snapped. "He's family, and family aids family." There it was again, that maxim, family aids family, except apparently, that only applied in one direction. "So, what exactly do you expect me to pay?" I inquired, the question laden with irony. "Double? Triple? Should I simply surrender my entire earnings to compensate for Mark's temporary financial predicaments?" "Don't be absurd, Ethan," Mother declared, waving her hand dismissively. "We were considering an additional $300 monthly should suffice." $300 on top of the $600 I was already paying? $900 monthly for a room in my parents' dwelling, now overflowing with pandemonium and sticky marks. $900 monthly while my favored brother and his entire family resided there without cost? Something within me simply fractured. Years of simmering resentment, years of feeling like the overlooked, undervalued offspring, years of observing Mark evade consequences for everything while I bore responsibility, all of it simply erupted. "You know what, Mother?" I articulated, my voice surprisingly composed, even as my core churned with fury. "You know what? You're right. Family does aid family." Mother beamed, actually beamed, as if she believed she was victorious. "That's my boy," she uttered, extending her hand to pat mine. I withdrew my hand. "Yes," I continued, my voice hardening. "Family aids family. And you know what else family does, Mother? Family doesn't exploit family. Family doesn't penalize one child for another's errors. And family most certainly doesn't demand more from the responsible child to compensate for the irresponsible one. Mother's smile faltered. She appeared perplexed, as if she was suddenly comprehending this conversation wasn't progressing as she anticipated. Ethan, what are you speaking about? She inquired, her voice now tinged with annoyance. I'm speaking about impartiality, Mother, I stated, finally allowing all the suppressed indignation to flow forth. I'm speaking about how I've been remitting lodging fees since I was 18 years old while Mark has never paid a cent. I'm speaking about how I've been toiling diligently to accumulate funds for my future while Mark is Mark. And now you desire me to pay more because he erred again? Because he moved back in and is living off of you without contributing? No, absolutely not. Silence descended upon the living room. Father appeared as though he was attempting to vanish into the armchair. Mother's face was acquiring a shade of crimson that I typically only witnessed when she was on the verge of unleashing a truly monumental lecture. Ethan, she declared, her voice perilously low, you are behaving incredibly self-centeredly right now. Your brother requires our assistance, and we require yours. No, Mother, I countered, rising to my feet, my legs feeling unsteady, but my resolve solidifying with each utterance. Mark requires assistance. You and Father need to cease enabling him. And I need to cease allowing you to take advantage of me. I drew a deep breath. This was it, the point of no return. I am not remitting an additional $300 monthly, I asserted, my voice clear and resolute. In fact, I am not remitting any lodging fees whatsoever anymore. Mother gasped, actually gasped, as if I had just struck her across the face. Ethan, how dare you? No, Mother, I reiterated, shaking my head. How dare you? How dare you expect me to finance Mark's way of life? How dare you treat me like a financial resource instead of your son? We've always provided for you, Ethan, she stammered, her voice escalating to a near shriek. We've always cherished you. Cherished me? I scoffed, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. Cherished me like you cherish Mark? Is that what you term affection, Mother? Because it feels a great deal more like exploitation. I did not await her reply. I simply turned and exited the living room, proceeding directly to my sleeping quarters. I forcefully closed the door behind me, leaning against it, my chest heaving, my hands trembling. That night I barely slept. My thoughts raced, replaying the exchange repeatedly. Had I gone too far? Had I been too severe? Perhaps $300 wasn't that significant an additional sum. Perhaps I should just tolerate it, and pay to maintain tranquility. But then another voice, a stronger, clearer voice, whispered in my mind, no, enough is enough. You've been fulfilling your obligations for years. You merit better than this. You merit equitable treatment. You merit respect. And that's when I made my choice. If they desired to perceive me as a non-contributor for declining to remit even more lodging fees while Mark and his family resided there without charge, then fine. I would demonstrate to them what a genuine non-contributor resembled. The following morning, I commenced packing, discreetly of course. I boxed up my attire, my publications, my computer, all the necessities. I transported them out gradually, stashing containers in my vehicle's trunk, conveying loads to my friend Liam's residence, where he had offered me temporary accommodation. It took me several days, relocating items in small increments, exercising caution not to arouse suspicion. Mother and Father were giving me the silent treatment, which, honestly, was a hidden blessing. Mark and Sarah were too engrossed in their own turmoil to notice anything. It was almost too effortless. Finally, on Friday evening, I placed the last container into my vehicle. I took one final glance around my sleeping quarters, the room I had inhabited for almost my entire existence. It felt vacant, not merely physically vacant but emotionally vacant too, as if all the years I had spent there, all the aspirations and ambitions I had harbored within those confines, had somehow been drained away. I grasped my keys, took one last deep breath, and departed the house permanently. I drove to Liam's, unloaded the remaining containers, and collapsed onto his sofa, exhausted but strangely invigorated. It felt as though I had just escaped incarceration, as if I could finally breathe again. Saturday morning, Mother telephoned. Predictably, it was early, far too early for a weekend, and her voice was taut with barely suppressed rage. "Ethan," she articulated, her voice quivering. "Where are you?" "At Liam's," I responded, maintaining a calm and neutral tone. "Liam's?" she repeated, her voice rising in pitch. "What are you doing at Liam's?" "I relocated, Mother," I stated, simply laying it out there. Silence. A prolonged, weighty silence. I could practically discern the gears grinding in her intellect, attempting to comprehend this unforeseen development. "You relocated?" she finally stammered, sounding genuinely astonished for once. "Without informing us? Just left?" "Yep, I affirmed, punctuating the words slightly for emphasis. "Consider it my official notification. I no longer reside there." Another silence, then the eruption. It was even more monumental than I had anticipated, shrieking accusations, emotional manipulation, threats, the complete repertoire. She continued incessantly about how self-centered I was, how irresponsible, how I was abandoning my family in their moment of need, how I was breaking her heart, how I was, well, you grasp the concept. It was a masterpiece of parental manipulation, decades in the making. I permitted her to rant for a while, then finally interrupted her, my voice cold and firm. "Mother," I declared, "I am finished. I am finished with the emotional manipulation. I am finished with the inconsistent standards. I am finished with being your financial resource and Mark's scapegoat. I am gone, and I am not returning." And then I delivered the statement I had been rehearsing in my mind for days, the statement that I knew deep down would truly sting, the statement that was both trivial and profoundly gratifying. "You know what, Mother?" I stated, my voice dripping with irony. "Enjoy the non-contributors." And I ended the call. I deactivated my phone, tossed it onto the sofa, and drew another deep breath. It was done. I was liberated. I know, it probably sounds harsh, perhaps even cruel, and maybe in some respects it was. But honestly, I do not regret it, not in the slightest. For the first time in my existence, I felt as though I was finally asserting myself. For the first time, I was prioritizing my own well-being over my family's incessant, unreasonable demands. Yes, my parents are furious. My mother has left approximately 1,000 voicemails, all ranging from tearful entreaties to outright insults. Father has dispatched a few carefully worded passive-aggressive messages hinting at his disappointment. Mark? Radio silence, probably too occupied figuring things out to even perceive my absence. But you know what? I do not care. Let them be furious. Let them be disappointed. Let them determine how to manage their favored child and his non-contributing family entirely on their own. I am finished rectifying their errors. I am finished being their subservient. I am finished. I am 24 years old. I possess a good profession, a respectable amount of savings, and an entire life ahead of me. It is time for me to commence living it on my own terms. It is time for me to be Ethan, not merely the responsible offspring or Mark's overshadowed sibling. It is time for me to be me.